News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
Newstalk, KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning.
Some good news out of China from Senator Steve Daines. Good morning, everyone. Montana Morning for Monday, July 24th, 2017. Sky is smoky. We've got 57 degrees in Missoula right now. Air quality good to moderate here in western Montana. Unhealthy for sensitive groups in the Frenchtown area. And our newscast this morning is sponsored by Dig It Excavating, bringing 30 years of excellence to every job. Call 214-4292. Yesterday, Montana Senator Steve Daines announced the release and safe return of UM student Guthrie McLean from a Chinese jail.
I'm thrilled to report that we just received an email from Guthrie McLean's mother, Jennifer, that said, "Prayers answered, Guthrie is home." After days of working the phones with top Chinese and American officials to secure Guthrie's freedom from a Chinese detention facility, he has been safely reunited with his mother.
University of Montana President Sheila Stearns reacted with relief that McLean had been released.
We have heard from Senator Daines' office that Guthrie McLean has been released and is at home with his mother. And that is, of course, terrific news. We don't have any more details than that. So I can't go into any explanations except to know that a lot of people went to bat to help him and his mother work out the circumstances. So we're really very pleased.
The release followed an agreement with Chinese authorities to drop any charges against McLean, according to Steve Daines. Local police in China could not be reached Monday morning for comment. Daines said he spoke with Guthrie McLean after his release, said he plans to return to Missoula to resume his studies at the University of Montana next month. A Missoula woman was robbed and then stabbed repeatedly during a home invasion that occurred early Sunday morning. Corporal Bob Campbell with Missoula Police Department provides these details.
Missoula Police responded to the 1300 block of Montana Street for a report of a stabbing that took place there. This occurred around 1:40 a.m. this morning. The victim of the stabbing was stabbed in the face, chest, abdomen, and legs. She ended up being transported to St. Patrick Hospital, where she's still receiving treatment.
Campbell said the masked suspects are still at large.
The suspects involve a man and a woman. Both at the time were wearing masks. Detective Division will be following up with their investigation. And at this point, there was an undisclosed amount of money and other items stolen from the residence at the time of the assault.
Campbell asks anyone who may have information about the male and female suspects who must be considered armed and dangerous to contact the Missoula Police Department at 552-6300. Authorities say a 33-year-old Montana man survived a rollover crash only to be struck and killed a little later by another passing vehicle. Lewis and Clark County Coroner Brian Backerberg identified the victim as Adam Zeile of Helena or Zeile. The Montana Highway Patrol said the initial crash was reported about 10:30 p.m. Thursday north of Helena. The driver was able to get out of the vehicle, stand up, and talk to another driver. Backerberg told the Independent Record that the victim was then struck by another passing vehicle and died from multiple blunt force injuries. The out-of-state driver of the vehicle that struck and killed the man stopped to help. Officials are investigating both crashes. No charges have been filed. Both Missoula Fire and police officials are investigating a suspicious fire reported to 911 early Sunday morning on Turner Street on the city's north side. Battalion Chief Derek Mullins said the call came at about 3:30 a.m.
Initial size up from crews were heavy fire and smoke showing from just outside of a business there on Turner Street. Crews found some plastics and wires and computer parts that were well involved in fire, threatening the building. Crews got on scene, did quick work the fire, and prevented it from spreading to the building.
Mullins said the fire was suspicious in nature.
We do think the fire is suspicious at this time, and we've got our investigators looking into any leads we've got, and we'll work with Missoula Police as far as the investigation goes on that. So it's ongoing. Minimal damage and no damage to the commercial building that was next to it.
Mullins said 3 Type 1 fire engines responded with a total of 9 firefighters, along with a ladder truck, an assistant chief, and a fire investigator. Said no civilians or firefighters were injured. By the way, anyone with information about that fire has to contact Missoula Police 552-6300. A Montana man pleaded guilty to one count of theft by embezzlement for stealing as much as $210,000 from a local car dealership. The Montana Standard reports Ronald Johnson made the plea to the felony Thursday in Butte District Court. Court documents show Johnson was working at payroll at Lescabar Motors when checks for unexplained sums were found in his name. During an investigation that included analysis of handwriting and banking records, police determined as much as $210,000 may have been embezzled from the dealership's accounts. Johnson was charged in December of 2015. His case was scheduled for a jury trial to begin August 1st before being settled by a pretrial agreement. Judge Brad Newman will schedule a sentencing hearing after a pre-sentencing investigation has been completed. Wildfires emerging all over western Montana, as you can tell from the smoke in the air right now, and concern exists with revenue triggers looming that the state won't have enough money in the budget to effectively fight all the fires. State Representative Nancy Balance, chair of the Interim Finance Committee, said she believes state revenues will fall short enough to trigger significant budget cuts.
The governor was looking for a $300 million ending fund balance. We instead gave him a $200 million ending fund balance, and then some triggers in case the revenue estimate was not met. So that was the whole intent, was to be able to cover any emergency situations that we had in terms of revenue, and it looks like we are going to be lower than what we expected.
Balance said firefighting costs depend on whether the incident occurs on federal or state land.
We're looking at about $30 million that we'll end with in that fire fund that we'll have available for us. Now, in the past, it's been less than that. A heavy fire year is going to be more in the $40-50 million range. On the other hand, the governor does have an emergency fund that he can use as well. Emergency fund for the governor is $16 million.
Balance said the worst-case scenario would be having the governor call a special session of the legislature. Ironically, the last special session was in 2007 to address funding for fighting wildfires. Federal officials say a punishing drought that stretches across much of the U.S. northern plains is expected to cause farmers to lose 64 million bushels of wheat production this year. The Billings Gazette reports northeast Montana is experiencing the worst drought in the country, with similar dry conditions in neighboring North Dakota and South Dakota. Federal agriculture officials have labeled as poor or very poor more than half of Montana's 2017 crops of spring wheat, lentils, and durum. Combined, the three crops were valued at more than $600 million last year. In the small town of Nashua, on the edge of the Fort Peck Reservation, a scant 1.2 inches of rain have been recorded since the first day of April. And 2 airplanes will be scooping water out of Yellowstone Lake to fight a wildfire east of Yellowstone Park. Park officials have closed off a large portion of the lake to boats to keep people away from the firefighting aircraft. Planes will use the lake for the next week or so. They're dumping water on a 3-square-mile fire, threatening 200 homes and other structures 13 miles from the park. The Cody Enterprise reports firefighters hope to keep the fire from closing a highway into Yellowstone. Our News Talk time now, 6:13.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Sunshine today with our high temperatures right around the 90-degree mark. It will be windy this afternoon with wind gusts between 20 and 30 miles per hour. Tonight, lows in the 50s, remaining breezy. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for Missoula's KECI 13.